Good morning to everybody out there in Cyberland. Please join us in our madness here as we celebrate the phenomenal world of Disney Plus's new film based on Catherine Applegate's New York Times bestselling and Newbery Award winning novel, The One and Only Ivan. You've jumped right into the madness with us, so I'd like to welcome all our panelists right this second.
Very nice to be here. Very nice, very nice.
Hello. Very nice.
Hello, everyone.
It just shows you that actors can't follow directions.
No, I know. We can't follow anything.
Curtain was still down. We walked out on stage.
Oh, should you show how amazing Thea is for putting us, like, managing this bunch?
Yeah.
Yep. That's the thing. It's the magic of the circus, and you guys are here for it. And I'd just like to welcome everyone very specifically today. So we've got Bryan Cranston, Angelina Jolie, Sam Rockwell, Danny DeVito, Helen Mirren, Chaka Khan, Phillipa Soo, Brooklynn Prince, Ariana Greenblatt, Ramon Rodriguez, Ron Funchess, Mike White, and director and master cat wrangler, Thea Sharrock.
Yeah. Right. Our fearless leader.
Yes.
Yes.
Truly. Now, you guys, I'd like to kick this off by asking you all the same question. And so I'll give you a heads up with your name when we're going to come to you. But I actually think that the character Bob is rather prophetic. So one of the things that he said really caught my attention. He said, we're all a little artsy.
Yeah,
and
we are.
I love that. And so I actually wanted to kick this off by asking everybody how you're a little bit artsy outside of your acting. Tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe something we don't know. Why don't we start with you, Bryan?
Well, I agree with you. I think the character of Bob is a little pathetic. If that's
pathetic.
In this world of COVID-19 and lockdown, I've actually started baking sourdough bread, and I'm quite proud of it. Actually, it's fun. In our world of self-motivation and developing your own characters, and it takes a lot of energy, but you don't really follow any rules. And so I thought, following a recipe is kind of fun in that regard.
Really cool.
But it's been fun.
Do you grow the yeast? And,
that'll be next.
God, here we go.
Yeah.
And you do the whole thing and you let it rot, and then do you add things to it now, or you just, what kind of, you make sourdough, or you make, what do you make?
I make sourdough. I get the yeast from the back of your ears, and that is the starter that I use.
Okay.
That makes it extra sour.
Okay, I get it. Let's try it.
Danny, what is it?
Okay.
Well,
very good.
On the artsy thing, what first came to mind with me is when I first ran away from home at 16, I actually joined the circus.
Wow. What?
For 7 months.
Wow, who knew?
I ran away with this guy named Robert, who's lovely. I was with the Barnum and Bailey Blue Circus for about 6 or 7 months. We took a train. I didn't know what I was doing, where I was going, but I met this lovely guy named Bob at a club, and he was with the circus, and he asked me to come along, and I went. And I actually was a rope girl, and I rode the elephant girl around the finale. I fell in love with an elephant named Calcutta, and I was a rope girl where they spin that rope around, and you could put it in. It's really cool. It's great. So this really brought back doing this film, this really brought back memories of the circus. I was thinking, well, what could I be today? I would love to.
That's amazing.
I'm in the circus, yeah. Sort of.
Danny, why don't you jump in there? You have a lot to say about sourdough.
I would say, like, my big, I would, maybe I might get on the elephant for a bit, but no, I don't think the rope thing might be a little bit wacky for me.
Well,
you're really spinning, right?
Yeah, I couldn't do it today.
Yeah.
I'm young and crazy, and
Where were you? What state was that?
I'm from Chicago.
Chicago. Wow, that
Yes.
was amazing.
Born and raised in Hyde Park. Yeah.
My mom's from South
Did
Side
you do
Chicago.
it outside of Chicago?
Really?
Just in Chicago. Did you go travel with the circus?
I traveled almost. Did the Blue Circus at that time was doing the sort of not the middle, not quite south and not quite north, right in the middle. And we went as far west as maybe
cool.
I don't even know. I forgot. But we went a little bit west and we came back.
We probably all got to see you. We don't know.
And you didn't even know it.
Yeah. I've been hanging out since the all lockdown stuff and doing lots of stuff. A lot of communicating, talking on phone, texting, Zooming, whatever I can. But I also started, I had a tree planted in my yard. It's a really cool tree. It's a maple tree, red maple. And it's really a very pretty tree. And I decided to hang a couple bird feeders on it. So, yeah. And all these little finches come, I mean, it's like, now it's got very, very popular. They're about six little perches on it around. And then there's the tree branches. And by now there's so many birds out. It's like I feel like it's like a deli where I've got to you got to like grab a number because they're all waiting in line to go to the bird feeding. The squirrels are the ones that come after it.
That's very true.
So I've been doing battle with squirrels in a good way, just like slamming the door. No, nothing too violent, but picture a long bird feeder, and the squirrels jump.
Yeah, well, I have a hummingbird feeder.
Yeah,
but I don't hang it from a tree. I hang
it in the tree. I pulled all the branches back, and then there's this one pole that comes down to grab the thing. And the squirrels would shinny down that pole and actually hold on to the bird feeder and stick their noses in and eat.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
I put a little cardboard hat on it.
They're really bright. Those squirrels. Squirrels and
I think those guys confounded by my little cardboard hat.
Now, what you guys are touching on is that a lot of us have been out in nature. That makes a lot of sense. Now, Sam, what about you? How are you a little bit artsy outside of your acting?
Sadly, I have no hobbies except for lassoing. As Brooklyn and Danny know, so occasionally lasso a rubber trash can. But Brian's baking bread. I hear Michael Fassbender races cars, and
he's not in the movie.
I'm impressed. I wish I had. I'm sort of a professional dog walker right now. That's about it.
How about
I could use a stroll, man. Yeah.
Now, how about
I would take
Angelina?
you for a stroll, Bob.
I feel like I'm really boring. I spend a lot of time studying foreign policy. I'm like a closet.
That's impressive.
But I think my creativity is my kids. I think because I'm being with them and making up stories before bed or just being silly with them. I think really nothing I'm doing, just watching each of them become uniquely who they are and being around it and going into each of their, whether it be their rooms and talking to them or developing, helping them develop. It's not as much me, but it's my mom was like that. She was always
you're getting a lot out of that.
Loved seeing other people's creativity.
It's another world. I was babysitting last night.
Yeah.
I was babysitting all night because my daughter went to the studio and I had my grandson. He's 11.
Oh, great.
Been watching Avatar all freaking night. And he's watching it again now. And so I'm like, so I got
conversations you're having. I mean, I think this is the thing with kids, and not to be plugging a film, but like why you put certain things that are what Disney did. What conversations you have, and the parts of their minds you develop, or the parts of humanity, or
since they relate. Their dad is gone, and there's one of the people in the cartoon characters is Qatar, who I like very much, and she was talking to her father, who had left her when she was very young, and he had the same experience, and so when his father came on and said, I'm sorry, but I had to leave you. I had to go off toward a fight. But every minute and every night, I thought about you and your brother, and I cried to be home. So I could feel that striking a chord with them. And I stopped the tape and I said, okay. I said, so how did you feel about that? You actually got an explanation for your father's absence. Did that make you feel any better? He said, yes. I said, did you imagine maybe that was what your daddy wanted to say to you? He said, yes. But that's, I knew that more was going on, but he was giving me the yes, the one monosyllabic, but I could tell he was really.
But when art gets it right, when creativity gets it right, it's that deep place in us that then reaches that personal.
So true.
Someone else, and
true.
And we share. It's true.
Well, that's actually something about the film that really resonated with me, was that it could be everything going on in the world right now, but it just has such a heart. And even with that great story, as we all know, movies are nothing without the story. Thea, I wanted to ask you, about, can you talk about some of the complexity, because obviously the script is so nuanced, but at the same time, you're really dealing with a lot technically as well. Can you talk about some of the balancing those two things?
Firstly, I'd just like to say I'm so grateful, Angie, that you're on this.
Yes.
I thought that arts was just absolutely brilliant. So do you mean in terms of, how did I deal with all of these crazy ass people? Which, like I said before, I know there's somebody just outside that door with a huge trophy for me, now that you've all appreciated what it was like. So I'll say two things. One is, in terms of shooting this movie, was very much like simultaneously working on two movies at the same time, because of the technical aspect of it. So on the one hand, we started the whole process with the voice actors, because the animators needed their voices to begin to be laid down for the animation journey to begin. So we started with that. Then we shot all of our live action stuff. And then we went back in and we shot the virtual aspects of the film, which was whenever we had just animals in a scene together. And those scenes we often revisited. So we went back in and we did them several times just to get tiny nuances, changes in the actors' voices, changes in their performances, made a huge change to the animators and what they were doing. So in that sense, the technicality of it was certainly unlike anything I've ever done before. And then the other big thing, to answer your question, that we had to monitor, if you like, throughout, particularly throughout post, which is something that a lot of the voice actors were still around with me, and Mike White in particular was monitoring. You said heartfelt, which of course we wanted to capture the heartfelt spirit of the book, which was the most important thing. But there are also some very important big issues captured within the book that Catherine Applegate, for me, just managed to catch a level that meant that when I first read the book with my kids, who were 9 and 10 at the time, Angie, I know you had this experience, they just absolutely loved it, and they connected with it emotionally on a level that they really appreciated the journey that these characters go on. And I knew, reading it as an adult and as a parent, that I was appreciating something slightly different in certain aspects. And so we wanted to monitor throughout. We wanted to monitor the humor, because we always wanted to balance it and keep that aspect going, but not to be afraid of connecting with the emotionality of what is a really very powerful story.
And now that's actually one of the things about the film too. It allows for conversations about how we can advocate for the proper care and treatment of the animals. And Helen, I wondered if you had any feelings that you'd like to share about that message, and did participating in this film make you feel a certain kind of way?
It was a fascinating technical experience, and that's the amazing thing about our job, is that we're constantly being exposed to completely new experiences. And as this digital, a press junket, it's the first for all of us. So, that it's amazing that the technique, I was in awe of the technique the technicalities that Thea had to be, on top of. It was extraordinary. Her work was extraordinary. It's funny, I was just thinking with Danny, nature and animals are so much a part of our life and our existence, and the insects and the diseases. We're only, I feel we're at the very, very beginning of our knowledge of actually how important the natural world is to us. And this COVID, for example, is an incredible lesson in that direction. But I also went down the bird feeder thing for my entertainment, and the squirrels and the chipmunks, and watching them all work it out between themselves. And then what happens is a great big black bear comes along and takes the bird feeder and goes on.
Just goes away with it. I haven't seen the black bear situation yet in the Hollywood Hills, but I'm expecting.
Nature's it's not necessarily very nice, nature.
No, I'm sure it would.
And I want to ask Brooklyn and Ariana what they loved about the book, and maybe how they feel about the environment, and what all us crazy adults need to understand.
Well, I actually read the book before I even started acting. I read it in 3rd grade. And when I got the job, I was looking through my camera roll and I saw a picture of me reading it to the class. And I was like, no way, like that's crazy. But yeah, when I read it, it was actually one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life, because I've always been an animal lover and I've always wanted to like help animals in any way I possibly can. So reading it was very like touching to me, and I loved Bob. That was definitely one of my favorite characters. But yeah, I mean, as a kid, I want to spread awareness for kids my age as well to help animals in every way possible. But yeah, I mean, when I read it, it was very touching and I learned a lot from it as well. And I thought it was a really cool story. So especially when I met Catherine Applegate, it was a cool moment for me because I kind of just thanked her. I was like, thank you for like bringing awareness, especially for kids to read, to help animals. And like, I don't know, it was really cool. And I love art and painting and everything. So like combining my animal loving like side of me and my art side of me was really cool to see. And I'm just very thankful to play that character.
Ariana, were those your drawings that were used in the film?
Yes, actually. So when I had breaks during school, I actually like drew some of the drawings. So like the Bob one, like a few that you'll see. But yeah, it's really cool, and it was such a cool like opportunity for me to put my own art side into the movie, and it's something I'll always remember too.
Man, you're like the Bob Ross of this group, I'll tell you.
I love also your relationship with your dad in the movie. And I thought that it was so lovely seeing that a child, and the moment when you ask your dad to understand how to help.
Right,
dad has to make the choice of his like professional career, his life, his responsibilities, or doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that he is pushed from the child to understand that and the choice he makes. I love that moment.
It's a cool moment for me to play, because like kids can also make change, and like especially as I'm so young, I want to make change as well. So like having that moment of the kid talking to the adult of how to help and how to change is a really cool moment. And Ramon is also a great person to play with, so that was cool.
Brooklyn, what do you think about, so what are your thoughts on the book, and what do you think that you want to share with all of us adults?
So I read the book with my grandma, my Mimi. Love you, memes. But also I read it out loud to my brother and my mom, and my brother was really young, and I remember reading it, and I honestly loved Ruby, but I think it teaches us a good lesson about keeping our promises, because, you know, Ruby would have never gotten free if Ivan did keep his promise to Stella. And I think that's something very beautiful. But I love the book so much that I lended it to my best friend, and I told her to read it because it was something so special. And I loved Bob, and because he was like so funny. But I also loved the sentiment that of love, and like how Ivan doesn't care for Ruby in the first place, but even though he doesn't care for Ruby, and then like when Stella kind of tells him to keep his promise, or tells him that he has to promise to get Ruby, or he makes the promise to get Ruby out in the wild, he works his best to do that, and that is something that a lesson that we can all take in.
And I also heard that you had a very special outfit that you like to wear when you're recording. Can you tell us about that? Confirm or deny the rumor, please.
It is confirmed. So I saw Angie 2 times. The first time I met her was at the Governor's Awards, and then I saw her at the Critics' Choice Awards. When I saw her at the Critics' Choice Awards, I was like, hey, we should wear elephant onesies in the recording room. And I go home and I'm like, Mama, please buy me an Angie elephant onesies. And my mom was like, I'm buying Angelina Jolie an elephant onesie to match with my daughter. What even size does she wear?
And my excitement when I got it.
Yeah, and I was there and in the onesie, and I was bouncing around like a fart in a scale. I was like, when's Angie coming? When are we gonna wear elephant onesies? And my dad's like, it's probably hot, or she might forget it or something. She comes in, she's like, and she like drops off the stuff, and she's like, you got it for me? And so she put it on, and me and her have a selfie together wearing our elephant onesies. But in the end, it got kind of hot, but we just tied it around our waists. But Angie also bought me the stuffed animal with a little baby elephant and a big elephant holding each other's trunks for Easter.
I think it's safe to say we became like the elephant family, and we got really into our characters, us too.
Yeah.
Love it. I highly recommend to everybody that doesn't already own a onesie to do it. It will change your life. And Sam, I wanted to ask you a question from Ben O'Shea. He wants to know, thanks to COVID-19, humans around the world are cooped up in their homes right now, a lot like the animals in the mall. So what can the one and only Ivan teach us about getting through this predicament?
Yeah. Like Papillon or something. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that, but I think Ivan would definitely have something to teach us for sure about isolation. Yeah, the real story is, if you've seen the documentary, it's really moving, and it's a heartbreaking story, the real story. So I'm sure that Ivan would have something to say about it.
I think you're relying on your friends. That's big. Being in that circle of the closest circle that you have, especially we're in the pandemic, you're looking for your family or your friends that are the people that are you're socially distancing from, but that are the safest. So you try to do that. And also then you got, you had a T V and we had a T V we watched in the domain. Bryan gave us Mack gave us a T V. You, not me. He wouldn't give me a T V. So we watched a lot of.
Yes, that's right. We were very familiar with all the hit shows of the day.
We knew exactly what was going on. All the westerns. Westerns were the best.
Rawhide, sure. Yeah.
Cut them off at the pass, baby.
Right.
And you know what? Oh God, these are all so good. Speaking of friends, I'd like to talk to our parrot and our bunny friend. That's Phillipa and Ron. I wanted to ask you a very serious question about how you got into the right frame of mind to play your character.
Ha! Ron, would you like to go first?
Oh, ladies first, please. You first.
Well, it was very simple. I thought to myself, what do parrots do? Aside from Gilbert Gottfried's performance in The Lion King, I thought just look up some parrot videos, and I did. And then I tried to make my squawkiest, most parody sound in my house, for everyone else to hear. And I actually asked my husband, I was like, does this sound parody enough? And he was like, totally, that's great. So I was just walking around my house being like, for like an hour. Very artsy, very artsy.
Mine was very simple. I don't really have many voices. I don't do, I'm pretty new. I've only been acting for like 6 years. I don't even know how I got on this Zoom call, really. I'm just happy to see these people. So I just did my voice, and then sometimes they would tell me to change it a little bit. And then sometimes Danny would tell me to try different things. And then I would say, okay, Danny, you're very aggressive for your frame. So of course I will listen to you. And then that was pretty much it for me. And then in turn, now I'm in like a lot of movies and T V shows. So let's just keep it going.
And do you find yourself with a new affinity for fire trucks?
I've always loved fire trucks. They are my favorite of all trucks. They have a truck that has the most power and also has water. How could you hate a fire truck? And if I could live my whole life in a fire truck like a bunny, I would do that. I understand Murphy's position the whole time.
And Ramon, we've heard Thea discuss like some of the challenges in filming, but could you talk about specifically the challenge? You've been in several effects-driven films, and what were you seeing when you were on set? What were you acting with?
Well, some amazing people. I mean, one of the greatest gifts and one of the greatest challenges was probably Bryan Cranston. Incredibly gifted and wonderful. Boy, oh boy, he'd like break into his little Walter White character every once in a while and start getting aggressive. But it was really interesting to see some of the characters that played, Ivan, Ben Bishop, who was amazing. He'd be wearing like a spandex all over his body and these stilts, but he really, when I watched the film, I could actually see so much of his performance. I could see so much of what he gave to that character's physicality, the eye. It was really kind of incredible to work along him. And even, there was a character that played Ruby that would get into this small baby green elephant outfit and be walking around the set. And after a while, you'd kind of just go, that's a baby elephant. It was actually nice to have that. I've done stuff where there's nothing there. So it was actually really nice to have, and there's something about acting along, real person. So Ivan, having been there and having him really react to you and perform, as well as Ruby and the people that did Stella. I mean, it was a great gift to be able to have those actual people performing, and they're incredibly skilled. So it helped us. I know Ariana, myself, Awine, Bryan, like to be able to work along those characters was really great. I just want to circle back actually to something that you asked earlier in regards to the message, just about the film and the times that we're in. And I feel like we've all been sort of indoors, and I think it's allowed for a lot of introspection, right? Which is, I think, really similar to what Ivan goes through in this beautiful sort of coming of age experience where he gets to really, and I love the message that you get to find yourself even later in life. We're continually on this journey, and here we are in this very interesting time where you get to sort of be home. And whether you're baking bread or I'm cooking, I'm almost like a botanist out here. I can like plant and doing all these things, but also just looking within and what's going on, whether it's with yourself, country. It's just a really interesting time. And I think these moments actually allow us to hopefully come out of it maybe a bit more evolved. And I think for Ivan, that's exactly his experience. So I think that's a pretty powerful message, and in particular to where we are right now.
Definitely.
I agree. Because when I was doing my bit, it just came back. We tried, when I first came in, Danny's saying, like, do more you, like you say it. Do more. So my major experience in doing this part of Henrietta was just to be me. Come back and find myself. And to do that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was actually something that I wanted to ask you, Chaka. Is there like a particular aspect of Henrietta that you feel like is very deeply you? Because she's fun.
Yeah, Henrietta and I are very much alike. I'm like usually the one that the person that people come to when they want the truth, but they don't want it to. They want it told in a sort of a funny way. But the real truth, yeah. If you want the truth, don't ask me. You know, it's like that. But I'm going to give it to you. But yeah, I found Henrietta being like very, I mean, I just came back to me. That's how I am.
Bryan, Juan Fernandez wanted to ask more about your character and how you're neither a full-on villain nor are you a full-on hero, but can you talk about what complexity your particular performance brought that might not have been in the script? Like, just talk to me about the acting craft.
Well, it started with Mike's script, which resonated with me, and the plight of not just the animals and their particular emotional journey, but also with Mack. And I met with Thea a couple times before we started shooting, and we really discussed how we'd lay this out. And I too saw him as a man who has flaws, but also is attempting to make things right. Ivan was like a child to him, and so he wasn't about to abandon his child. So he wanted to figure out, how do I embrace the fact that he's now a full-fledged silverback gorilla, and how do I live with that? And so it was to discover those nuances and allow for the character to be vulnerable. So we talked about it, and I pitched the idea that Mack wears a wig, and that at one point the wig flies up and he's bald and it embarrasses him. And I also had a stomach pad to make him a little and that a girdle, so that when he's doing his master thing, that he would be wearing a girdle. And so those kind of things that were personal vulnerabilities that he didn't want people to see. So he was presenting himself as someone he wanted to project, but it wasn't really him. And at the end, then it came full circle. And Thea said, then at the end, we embrace, and he embraces who he truly is and allows himself to show who he really is at the end. No more wig, allowing himself to be who he is. And he's happy and proud to see that Ivan has moved into the next chapter in his life.
And how much C G was involved in you riding a tiny bicycle, Bryan?
No. You know, you look at a bicycle and you go, well, I can ride that. It's actually much harder than it appears. No, C G, I rode the bicycle. It was difficult, but it was fun. And I fell down several times because it's slick, and your knees are basically up in your face when you're riding this whole thing. You know, I didn't, when I first saw the bicycle, I noticed on the side of it, it said property of Danny DeVito. And I went, oh.
Was that Danny's idea?
Work every day. I rode that to work every day. I kept it in my phone.
I knew it.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I take baths with it too.
I bet you did.
Yeah. Really nice.
I know you did.
Now, Mike, Jamie Philbrick with WeLiveEntertainment.com has a question for you. Please talk about the always challenging process of adaptation. You know, obviously it's heartbreaking to leave some things behind, but can you expand on that?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I was really lucky because the book is so, the characters are so rich and it's so emotional and very soulful for a children's book or a young adult book. I don't know how you necessarily classify it, but yeah, I think that it needed like a structure, like a lot of these adaptations, where you just need to make it more, have a more of a plot in a sense, because the plot isn't really front and center in the book. So that was the biggest challenge, and just giving Ivan and Mack and, you know, arcs. Mack's arc is pretty solid in the book, but, you know, Ivan having a, you know, an arc that is more classic as far as like a Disney film would require. So that was the biggest challenge, and working with Thea and the producers and Disney, it was I think our biggest challenge as far as adaptation.
And Angelina, what was it about this project? This question, by the way, comes from Courtney Howard. What was it about this project that made you want to take on a producer role in addition to lending your voice as a character?
Well, thank you, Courtney. One of my children read the book and said that they loved it, and I read it, and we kind of talked about why it was special and why it meant so much to them, and so I started to pursue where is it being made, what's happening, and started to get involved and looked at, and even the early drafts, it was very interesting. And one of the things Mike did that I think was very special is I'd seen it start to go down a road where it really started to become a light, fun kids like action, a simpler story. It was easy to somebody to come in and just try to pick a few threads and make it quite simple and add some action here and to really make it what it is intended to be. And Disney and Mike and everybody involved really to understand that it's hard. It's not a light film. It deals with heavy issues, but it is charming and fun and full of life. But it's deceptive in kind of what the packaging. So I thought very, very important and wanted to get involved. I like the messages in it, and I'm excited that this young generation as well. I think all of us older people will appreciate it for many reasons, but I know this young generation is really very aware of what is happening in the world to our natural habitats, to these animals, what's happening in Congo and losing ground, what's happening with the gorillas, the elephants, and they're angry, and they want to really be clear about what kind of treatment is appropriate, what kind of captivity is appropriate, again, being against poaching, being against preservation of natural habitats. So I think this will, this represents them. It represents, Ariana's character represents them. And I think that's strong for them today to see that their actions can make change. Oh, yeah.
And kind of in the same vein, Thea, Don K had a question. Can you discuss the challenges of addressing issues of animal captivity that while also making it a fun, endearing film? Like, were there particular visuals you had decided against and things like that?
Thank you, Don. Easy question. Yes, it was a big concern from the beginning to, again, try to not make it feel like a documentary. That's been made already on the real life story of Ivan the gorilla. And this is also, it's not just any studio, it's Disney. And so we definitely knew that there was a tone that we had to get right. And that was everything from Mike and I in the beginning working on the script and throughout, to endlessly looking with the designer, Molly Hughes, as to exactly how the domains would work physically, literally like how big the bars are, so that on camera they would have the right feel. And that sometimes there are some shots, obviously we chose very carefully when we came to edit it, that certain scenes, there are no bars to be seen whatsoever. And in other moments, we've chosen very carefully when the presence of the bars are there so that they are a constant reminder. It's not easy when your leading character is behind bars for 80% of the movie. And you have to hold at its heart that he creates a dream. He's given a gift by Stella to create a gift of a dream to get out. And as Brooklyn put it beautifully earlier, to hold on to a promise that he gives to Stella. And so throughout the movie, for example, we also made the choice to have, there's next to no green used in the movie. So that when you get to either Ivan's flashbacks from when he's a kid, which we made as green as possible and made as like the Congo as possible. Or the very end when he gets to where he needs to go. Again, we made that as green and as lush as possible. But every choice up to that point with both the designer and the costume designer, we did everything to keep as much green away as possible. And if you look very carefully, the biggest decisions we had to make, I thought, because I'm a Brit, and then I realized this wasn't going to be a problem, was exit signs that over here are green, but I don't think they are in America. So although there's a nice symbolism in that, we didn't even have to deal with that. So actually, yeah, that was one of the main decisions that we made very, very early on.
That's so interesting. You thought that really does. It makes an impact. I didn't realize that, but thinking of the film, it does make a huge, strong choice.
Now, believe it or not, we've almost reached the very end of today's press conference, but I won't forgive myself if I don't ask Danny DeVito, how much of yourself did you put into Bob the dog?
Let's see. Well, first of all, it was a pleasure being in this movie. I love working with everybody in the film, and Mike and Thea and all the characters that were with me in the, I mean, I'm an animated dog, so I kind of spoke with Sam and Helen and everybody, you know, but I put a lot in the character. I feel like the thing about Bob for me was I wanted a friend, and I always wanted a bigger brother in my life, and I want an older brother. Now, I don't know if he's older than I am, but I know he's bigger than I am, and that gorilla was my best friend, is my best friend. And, you know, I always wanted a soft place to sleep, and his belly is just so soft. And I could just think about right now, just sinking into that belly and maybe eating a little piece of pizza first and watching little cowboy movies and just let my eyes go and go to sleep with them.
You're making me sleepy.
I'm sorry. I had a
One and only Bob next.
Right, can I just quickly say thank you all to all of you. Obviously, we should really be standing on some podium somewhere, passing a mic down the line, welcoming everybody to come in and see our movie. And so sadly, we can't be in cinemas at the moment, but at least we are blessed with having the option of putting it right out there to everybody on Disney Plus. But thank you all so much, all of you, for everything that you put into this movie. It's so cool to see you all together, because I never got this. I never got this moment. I had you in little pieces, and now I've got all of you. So it's amazing. Thank you all so much for doing this, and for, as I said, everything that you put into the movie. You're all brilliant, and I'm really, really proud of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. That did an amazing job.
You're the
It's
best.
great seeing your film.
We love you.
That's exactly why she is the master of herding cats.
Yes.
And we have already reached the end of today's press conference. And so for all of our participants, you are now welcome to wave and say goodbye, turn off your video and mute yourselves. And
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, celebrities.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Ron.
Meet you. Bye, Angelina.
May everyone watching, may your days be full of soft bellies and pizza. And again, I'd like to thank Bryan Cranston, Angelina Jolie, Sam Rockwell, Danny DeVito, Helen Mirren, Chaka Khan, Phillipa Soo, Brooklynn Prince, Ariana Greenblatt, Ramon Rodriguez, Ron Funchess, Mike White, Thea Sharrock, and I am Gray Drake. Everybody stay safe out there, and thank you for being with us.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey